This is a SoundboardNA, a kind of homebrew C-Bus card made by Ethylene and Flying Haruka, a couple of guys from China that hang out on the PC-98 Discord server. It's an alternative to the PC-98 0186 card since it also supports OPNA. However, there are a couple of differences we'll get into later. These are being sold now, so if you want one, you can contact Ethylene through Discord DMs or email, which I'll have below in the description. I paid $100 for mine, plus $30 for shipping, so it's an okay price considering that if you were to buy an 86 board right now, it would cost just as much if not more, and it would come with probably bad caps and or board damage since they suffer the same issues the A-mates do. So I'm going to do an overview of this card, what it is and what it isn't, and also compare the sound output to my As2, and also for shits and giggles I'll throw it in my UV2 to see how it works on older machines that weren't meant to be used with these OPNA boards. So taking a look at the board itself, we obviously have the star of the show, which is the Yamaha 2608 chip, the OPNA FM synth, which is in a socket, so it's easily replaceable if it breaks for some reason. Above it we have the memory for the AD PCM, and then over here we have the DAC, which is also socketed. We have an onboard speaker, so if you don't plug any speakers, you can still hear sound. It's got two pots, I'm not sure what that's for. You got a volume control and also the input and output. And then also over here we have two joystick ports, which I have yet to use. I need to make a joystick for this thing. This board has a nice, simple, clean look compared to the Frankenstein's monster that is my As2 sound hardware. And also I did remove the extra RAM from my motherboard after Yeast threw me for a loop. Turns out that Yeast just doesn't like A-mates for some reason. I thought it was bad RAM, but now I have 2 megabytes less on my board, so whatever. So installing this in the computer is as simple as any other C-Bus card, except you gotta make sure that the dip switches are set right, which standard is 188H and INT5, so I got that set up. Just slide it in and there you go. So this computer should be set to run this card, except we have to disable the onboard sound, which might cause an issue with 1 or 2 games. I'll discuss that later, but here we go. So now that we know the card works, I'm going to talk about what this card is, and it's not a direct clone of an 86 board. It's designed to be compatible with another third-party PC-98 expansion card called the Speak board, which has OPNA sound and AD PCM memory. The card was designed with later 9821 models in mind, the ones that have onboard PCM output such as the X or ARM8 computers. Due to this, games that require 86 PCM, which is a feature unique to the 86 board, aren't completely compatible with this card, but it seems some of them also support 80 PCM sound, so it's not really that big of an issue. One of the few issues you would run into with using this on an older machine such as my As2 or earlier fellow machines is that you won't be able to use the PCM in Windows. However, most games on Windows might not run too well on these older machines anyway. I guess the idea behind this card is to provide an alternative OPNA sound card for people who might not be into soldering. Whether you get an A-mate or an 86 board, you will need to replace the caps before, board damage happens. It's kind of inevitable at this point. So this thing allows for cheaper and more reliable 9821 models to be used for playing games with OPNA sound. The reason I got one for my As2 here is you never know when this thing's going to have another meltdown, so I'd like to have a backup just throw in there if I need to. Also, it's a nice cause to support, so there's that too. So now that we got that out of the way, let's do a little sound comparison. Unfortunately, OBS capturing the audio doesn't sound that good, so I'm going to have to go and re-record it using Audacity or something like that, so if the sound doesn't match the video, obviously that's why. It's better audio quality, I suppose. So first off, of course we're going to do Toho, because what's a PC-98 video without Toho first? And it's the game that gets everybody's eyeballs, so give it a listen here. So yeah, that's how the cards sound compared to each other. I did notice some funk trying to run Metal Force, but I don't think that's from the card itself. Flying Haruka tested it on their system and it works fine, but for some reason on mine, 3 of the FM channels just didn't want to work. I don't know, maybe it's something in my system's configuration or something that bugged it out. Besides that, everything else seemed to work fine. You said that they might work on another revision in the next few months. My suggested improvement would be to get the lows and highs of the audio up a little bit. The loud mids kind of made it muffled compared to the onboard audio on the As2. However, I don't think that's something you would notice unless you're doing some A-B comparisons like this right here. Although, obviously, my As2 is not the gold standard for PC-98 audio due to its little whine in the left ear, but that's just how that thing is. Also, sound may vary, like, as far as equalization and the level between the different channels might vary from card to card, so there's no one right way to listen to PC-98 stuff, so there's that too. Also, I've been meaning to capture this on camera for a while. Clearly my work here is not done yet. I gotta do some more work on the floppy disk drives and maybe recap them while I'm at it, but yeah, this thing just never ends. Now for a little bit of fun, we're gonna beat some rocks together while you watch me attempt to take this thing apart because I forgot how it came apart. Now I'm going to try putting this card in my UV, which is not really designed for it. First thing we got to do is remove the internal card, because I don't think there is a way to disable it. Now as far as I know, all I got to do is slide this in, and we might get sound from it, I'm not entirely sure. So I'm going to try booting up 2 games on this. First one's going to be Popful Mail to try and get the SBNA sound, and the second one will be Star Trader because it's got the weird sound BIOS switch requirement. Well, that's not quite right. The SBNA sound is there, but the screen's a little bit corrupted. Let's give it another try. No, it's still not working right. Well, let's pull the card out and make sure it's not my discs that are causing the issue. Well, that's kind of cute, I guess. But it appears the card is causing the corruption and not the discs, so I guess there's that. Well, I guess that's all there is to it. I did try disabling the sound BIOS option in the soft switches, and it still had this corruption, so I'm thinking this card just kind of stomps on the memory for the video or something like that. But the results are kind of interesting. I guess at least the sound's good, but whatever, I guess. So last game up now is just Star Trader, because it's an earlier Falcom game that requires the sound BIOS soft switch to be enabled. Which, it's not really required to have a sound BIOS, from what I'm told. So it's just checking for that switch to see if you have a card or not, and it doesn't require the BIOS. I guess the only thing that requires the BIOS for the most part are N88 basic games. So technically you could get this game to run on like a newer machine. However, at least on my As2, enabling the sound BIOS will enable the hardware, you know, built-in sound hardware, so I don't think it's going to work very well on my As2 when you have 2 sound cards fighting over the bus. So maybe on newer machines that would be such an issue, if you can find a way to enable that soft switch. The way you enable that on the UV2 is that you have to bring up the BASIC and then open up the monitor in the BASIC, but the newer machines do not have the monitor built into the BASIC, so I guess you'd have to find a different program to set that. So yeah, it's a pretty decent card, I'd say, and it'd be perfect for those wanting to get into PC-98 stuff but don't want to solder caps on a 86 board or an A-mate like I have. But yeah, if you want to buy one, I guess you could talk to Ethylene. His email is down below. But really, you should join the PC-98 Discord because it's cool and we can talk about PC-98 stuff there. But yeah, that's about it for this one.